You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from SIBO. The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. SIBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.sibo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is time once again to talk some options. Yes, it is time for your bi-weekly options extravaganza known as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Radio Network. Been doing this whole podcast thing for a little while now, 19 plus years. A good chunk of that with the Option Block here. A good chunk of that with the show coming up next, which is TWIFO. Kind of wild, 500th episode. Spectacular coming up on TWIFO after this one with all sorts of special guests joining us for that show. Should be a fun time. I don't even know who all of them are. It's going to be a surprise to me, too, which is fun. So stay tuned to TWIFO 500. If you're hanging out in the live, it's going to be on after this show. If you're listening on demand, yet another reason why you should be subscribed to the full Options Insider Radio Network, wherever you get your favorite podcast, because that'll get you TWIFO 500 and all sorts of other awesome stuff. Speaking of awesome stuff, we got some awesome stuff in store for you on this show as well, as we are joined first in the mobile office today. He actually left the comfy confines of St. Charles, Illinois. I did see him earlier this week, too, so he has left now twice in 1 week, which is kind of wild. Mr. Uncle Mike Tusaw from St. Charles Wealth Management. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show. How go things in the mobile office today?
Oh, everything is peachy. I'm sitting in Chicago traffic right now, reminded why I really never want to leave St. Charles.
Ah, yes. Chi-town traffic. See, if you're an Uncle Mike client, he might actually come to you. So yet another reason why. And he'll bring Skippy's gyros with him and keep him hot. That's the kind of guy he is. So I may want to hit him up, St. Charles Wealth, if you want to learn more. Uncle Mike, he'll make a road trip to California. He doesn't care. Louisiana, he's there.
I am everywhere.
He is
Johnny Cash song. I am everywhere, man.
He is inescapable, Uncle Mike. And then also joining us this week, beaming in from the hallowed halls of SIBO East and looking quite dapper. Are you hot off of the State of the Industry tour, sir? What's going on, Mr. Flowmaster, aka Mr. Henry Schwartz from SIBO East?
Well, good to see you, Mark and Mike. No, I'm no state of the industry today. I was actually at a conference, and then tonight there is a black tie awards dinner. Sivo's CEO Craig Donahue is receiving an award at the Boathouse in Central Park. So I will be there supporting the team. But I'm happy to be here. It's a beautiful day in New York. I was actually running around Boston yesterday, seeing some clients. The market is actually up today, which is kind of nice. We had a couple good days, got a little choppy out there. But lots going on, lots to dig into. So happy to be here.
All right, listeners, let's do that digging. It is time for the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the Trading Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Trading Block, the portion of the show where we break down what the heck is trading out there, what is lighting up our tapes. And as the Flow Master alluded to, color we had become accustomed to, and then it seemed like it went away for a little bit this week. Now coming back on the screens, yes, I'm talking green. S&P up 0.4%. Dow feeling its oats today, up 1.7%. Everyone's talking rotation today. Are we seeing that play out before our eyes? NASDAQ off about 0.1%. I should point out the S&P and the NASDAQ both off their lows. S&P was red at one point. The NASDAQ was very red at one point, and both of them climbing as they like to do heading into the start of the show. That's when Uncle Mike and his cabal really can start digging in and doing their true buying work out there. But of course, they're coming off the heels of Broadcom, aka AVGo, going straight down pretty much, spooking a lot of folks out there. You know, you getting all the alarm bells. Is the AI spend overdone? Is the AI thing over? Are we rotating out of it? We were seeing really earlier this morning some aggressive red in the NASDAQ, a decent bit of red in the S&P, nothing crazy. And then the Dow kind of shooting up. So it was an interesting day. And still remains an interesting day. As we keep going, we'll probably see the NASDAQ tick green any minute now. And that means Uncle Mike and his cabal will have completed their journey and have single-handedly lifted all of the major indices back into the green. Because red is not a color that they will abide on their watch, listeners. Unless you're looking at the VIX. The VIX is red today, right around 15.5 when we kicked off the show. Down about half a point. But that's another one where it was popping today as well. Got up to, looks like, right around 16.5, maybe a little bit north of that in the cash, right around almost 1670, 1669. It topped out at, again, as most of the major indices were red to start the day out there today. So interesting day. We are seeing a bit of that warm turn. We shall see if that continues. And since he's in the mobile office, I want to bring on Uncle Mike first before we lose him to the gods of connectivity here on the show. Uncle Mike, we'll get into all that market action in a second. But really quickly, at the top of the show, I know inquiring minds want to know. I want to know. I did go to an early screening of the Masters of the Universe last night. It was, no spoilers. I'll just say it was awesome. Go see it. But have you had a chance to go see the mother of all films yet, sir?
I have not, but definitely on the list. Got to see it. Yeah, I don't tell me. I gotta see it.
Oh, I got to tell you all the spoilers. I may or may not be going back today because all of the early tchotchkes they're supposed to have with the film, for some reason, not available with the early screening, which is when everyone who's hardcore wants to go see it. So I thought that was kind of fun. So I have to go back today, sir. Oh well. But I digress, sir. What's catching your eye out there in the markets today?
Well, I mean, we have a saying around St. Charles. It applies to Duquesne Conference football. With regard to Batavia High School, we say red is dead. And that also can apply to markets. Red is dead. We want to not have red on the screen at all costs. And so that's a good thing today. Yesterday was a little bit red, so we'll have to see where things are going. S&P is up roughly 10% on the year at this point. And so I'm at a point to where I'm not rolling up the long-term puts as of yet, but I'm getting pretty close to doing it. Not necessarily, I'm not bearish by any means, but when I say puts, long-term protective puts, of course. But you need to take these things with a grain of salt in a lot of ways because markets can pull back. And as we saw in March, markets did pull back. the one thing that I think we're really watching, or that's going to affect the market having a major turn to the upside or to the downside, would be it's a Howie Mandel market, deal or no deal. Are we getting a deal with Iran? Are we not getting a deal with Iran? And at this stage, it's more along the lines of the perception of a deal. Does it look like we're going to get a deal? Then the market will move to the upside. Does it look like we're not going to get a deal? Then the market will move to the downside. So that's the main driver of what people are waiting on, what people are looking at. There's some other things, of course, but for the most part, deal or no deal. Now, the other things that I think you need to continue to be watching in this market, it's going to be a big deal in the next few months, and that is interest rates. Do we have so much inflation to where we are going to have to raise interest rates? Or are we in a good spot to where we'll keep them the same? Or are we going to actually lower interest rates like the president seems to want to do all the time? That we don't know at this point in time, but I think that once the Howie Mandel market gets through, which hopefully that happens soon, obviously we don't want to be at war any longer than we have to, but I think once that goes through, interest rates will be the main focus of this market. And I would encourage everyone to keep an eye on them because bonds are down a little bit this year. Mortgage rates are up a little bit, not a lot, but just a little bit. So keep your eyes peeled to that as we proceed through this complicated web we call the markets.
All right, and there's a good chance the technology gods may strike you down before the end of the show. So before we go, anything else you want to leave with our folks, or any other things that are on your radar you want to share with them, you want to get off your chest? Now is your chance, sir.
Well, now that you gave me that chance, let me tell you how I really feel.
That Flow Master guy, let me tell you, right?
Oh, my goodness. Well, you wanted to find me a new nemesis based upon our meeting earlier this week. So no, I love the Flow Master. But no, I would say that keep an eye on interest rates in addition to keeping an eye on the news. It's going to be something very big, in my opinion. We have the rotation news as well for some company that sends rocket ships to outer space. I don't know. I never heard of it, by some guy that has some money. I don't know, but that's something else that we can keep an eye on. But as the technology is probably going to be going away pretty soon, that's what I have to say for, I guess that'll be my around the block.
There you go, because the good chance the tech gods will smite him down between Chi-Town and wherever he's going in the mobile office today. We wish you safe travels in case we lose you, Mr. Uncle Mike. All right, now to the Flow Master, sir. Mr. Flow Master, a lot going on. As you mentioned, we had some chop earlier in the week. Now it seems like the color most people have gotten used to is back on the screen. What's been catching your eye this week and indeed today, sir?
Well, it's definitely been kind of things got a little choppy after last week I think on the show we were talking about how the market was basically just kind of on a tear straight higher, and how that was a little bit confusing given the fact that oil was kind of still holding near highs, and there wasn't a lot of clarity on how that situation in the Gulf was going to play out. But I mean we are back up today, and as I said, I was at a conference. I was just looking at, I mean, for the Dow to be up 900 points at one point is pretty interesting. I mean, I think that I actually at this conference I was just at, which is kind of a macro-focused conference, they were talking about interest rates and what Warsh will do, and kind of the pressure that's going to be there, which is, and in fact, there was somebody did a panel who had been to the White House, and his view actually was kind of that short-term rates might actually have to pick up, but that it's not going to be kind of the end of the world. That if it's kind of the messaging might change a little bit under Warsh to be just kind of more clear, like this is to control inflation, and it doesn't. And he was actually kind of pointing out the difference between short-term rates and the 10-year rate, which is really kind of what mortgages and things tend to reflect. So, we are looking at a market. SPX is up almost 11% year to date. Russell's up 18%. That outperformance, we were talking about this, I think, in February. The Russell outperformance usually doesn't last too long, but kind of today's a perfect example. It's up 1.3%, similar to the Dow, where the S&P is only up 40 bips. And then when you seeing what Broadcom's doing post earnings, it's pretty serious down move there. So I guess there's a lot of kind of tumult, I would say. But it continues this theme we've seen, and my colleague Mandy talked about it in her volatility note this week, which is there is a lot of volatility in the single stock space, across the cross section and across sectors and everything else. But the index vol is really pretty muted, because even though you've got very volatile and some pretty big moves in the component stocks, it's what you have at the index level, because they're canceling each other out. You're getting diversification, and you're getting realized vol that's barely 12-13%, and that's why we see a VIX at under 15.5 today.
Yeah, absolutely wild stuff out there. Let's see if this wild stuff is translating into a wild market out there, listeners. And so far, it seems to be decently spicy. All things considered, listeners, VIX ADV has been kind of eroding back down to around 700,000 or so, actually getting a bit of a lift over the last few sessions, back up to nearly 750,000, 738 right now. So bouncing back up the mid 600s it was not too long ago, but also obviously off of its recent highs north of 1 million contracts. But today looking pretty robust, 425,000 contracts on the tape in VIX land. So a decent start, all things considered, out there. If you're wondering what is your hot option in VIX land today, let's just do a quick top 5, because why not? 45,000 of the July 25s, followed by number 2, 44,000 of the July 45s. Methinks I smell a spread there, listeners. There is OI on both of these strikes, so it could be an unwind or it could be adding. I'll have to dig in a little bit later to see. Number 3, 37,000. Oh, we're going all the way out to SEP now. The SEP 17 puts. If you're wondering what's a SEP 17 put going for, 65 cents. Interesting. I'm just going to say that's interesting. That's all I'm going to say. 35,000 for number 2, the SEP 19 puts. But those are going for right around $1.60. Those were opening today, if you are wondering. If that's not enough SEP for you, listeners, then we've got the SEP 20 puts out here. So a bit of a put palooza out here in all things VIX options today. Interesting. If you're wondering, 20 puts, $2.16. Interesting. Obviously, take a look at the term structure before you're going to trade anything all the way out in September, but you are getting some duration for that. We've been joking for a while, what is the new 15 put in VIX? Maybe it's the SEP 17 put. SPY looking pretty juicy today as well. 6.55 million contracts on the tape. The ADV, 10.3 million. The S looking surprisingly robust out there. 3 million contracts out of the gate already. That's may not sound like a ton. We've been seeing a lot of paper of late, but then again, the ADV is kind of fallen off a cliff. It's down to 4.9 million contracts, down from about 6 million not that long ago. So 3 million definitely going to lift that back up again. And then, as the Flow Master alluded to, small caps just on fire today, up well over right around 1.3%, and putting up pretty much a day's worth of volume already. 1.6 million contracts on the tape in small caps today. The ADV, 1.7 million. So if I re-racked them right now, they might be at that level already. Just an absolutely bonkers day out there in small caps. So that rotation talk is clearly alive, rotating into the Dow, but also perhaps into small caps, even though S&P is up now. So maybe they're rotating back into the S&P as well. Why not? Why sell anything that is an equity right now, listeners? That's un-American of you. America 250, you got to buy stocks. If you're wondering what is the hot option on a extremely hot day in small caps today, it's the 290 puts, but not expiring today. By the way, IWM hanging out a little bit north of 291, right around 291 and a half. So 290 puts, pretty close to at the money, but not expiring today. No, expiring all the way out in July. So kind of a bit of a theme we've seen for a while in IWM. It's either near dated calls or it's a little bit down the road puts, and seems to be the latter today. And if that's not enough for you, you also got 114,000 of the Jan 290 puts. Both of those opening, by the way, so it's not a roll. So it looks like maybe we got a bit of a calendar spread perhaps going up out here in, you like that, listeners? 290? It's an aggressive strike selection. that's for sure. Usually you see those kind of calendar put spreads. Maybe you're going down a little bit. Maybe you're doing 270 or something below. Nope, 290 straight to the fire. So kind of interesting. So maybe they're foreseeing a bit of a, if they are indeed buying this, then perhaps foreseeing a bit of a near-term rally in small caps, and then the bottom falls out of it by the second half of the year, beginning of next year. Interesting stuff. That's not enough. Number 3, you got 107,000. It's not all longer-term puts. There are some near-dated calls. In this case, the 291 calls expiring today, 107,000 of those bad boys as well. So it's a tough fight for the top spot in small caps. But right now, those 290 puts are winning. And you know what? The Qs are winning in terms of volume today as well. They were getting smoked earlier. Let's see. Have they turned green now on the day? If not, they're probably quite close. Not yet, but pretty freaking close. 0.03% to the red now. So they pretty much erased all of their losses for the day and putting up some serious numbers to boot. 5 million contracts already on the tape in the Qs. You know, lately I've been saying the Qs have been looking kind of soft from a volume perspective. We're seeing this time of the show 3.5, maybe 3 3/4, fully 5 million contracts on the tape right now. So the Qs lighting it up. I don't even need to fire them up to know that it's a 0-day probably call that's dominating the tape out there today. 6.4 million contracts is the ADV. So that's another one where we could probably be there by the end of the show. But you know where we want to go now, listeners. The last time we got together, it was pretty much the spiciest top 10 we calculated in terms of how much it cost you to break into the top 10. Pretty much the spiciest we had ever seen out there, listeners. And is it that level today? It was pretty much 600,000 contracts. We had never gotten that high before. We've gotten up to about 550 or so in the past. That was kind of our previous record. So 600,000 contracts to break into the top 10 today, or I should say on our last show. That is nothing to sneeze at. It was a banger day. Second half of the session didn't quite deliver. We didn't see, you know, 1 million plus contracts to break into the top 10 at the end of the day. But still, it was a robust first half of the session. Still looking pretty active today, but not quite to that extent. 416,000 contracts is what it cost you to break into the top 10. This was as of a few minutes ago. If I re-racked it right now, it'd probably be a little higher, probably almost 430, but still not going to get us to the 600K level we were at on the Monday show. That was just an absolute banger. Number 10 gets you to our pals, the Amazonians, today. Amazon getting some love back after giving up some gusto this week, up about 4 1/4 today, trading 254 1/4. Again, good for number 10. Let's just call it 416 right now. Number 9, our old pal Alphabet. They've been getting shellacked this week, getting a good chunk back today as well. 372.42 is where they're hanging out, up about $13.50 today. Good for number 9, 417,000 contracts. Again, this is as of a few minutes ago. Number 8, our old pal, the Monster. A lot of eyes have been on this one of late because Bitcoin getting shellacked. Our good buddy Carly Garner on the Futures Rundown yesterday, pointing out kind of an odd dislocation right now between Bitcoin and the equity markets moving in opposite directions. We haven't seen that much in the last 5 years. They've been mostly moving in lockstep. When one's selling off, the other one is usually following suit. So to see Bitcoin and the equity markets kind of diverging, a little bit surprising to a lot of people. Some folks pointing out one of those is probably wrong. The question is which one? Which one is wrong? We shall see. Right now, strategy, though, getting back a little bit of its loss, Lester. Let me emphasize a little bit. They're up 61 cents, trading 127, pretty much 127 exactly. Over the past 5 days, listeners, they're off 22 handles or about 15%. So they have come for strategy this week. So 50, 60 cents ain't going to cut it for them out there. Nonetheless, number 8, the Monster. Number 7, it's the fruit company. It's Apple. 311, pretty much exactly up about 80 cents today, listeners. Good for number 7, 519,000 contracts on the tape. Number 6, the artist formerly known as Facebook. They were kind of getting shellacked for a while there. Got down to about the par strike. I think literally yesterday they bounced off the par strike. I think it was Tuesday they bounced off the par strike. But either earlier this week they hit 600 and pretty much bounced right off it. and looking pretty good again today. 630 and a quarter, up 7 and a quarter today. Good for number 6, 582,000 contracts on the tape. Number 5, the saga of this name has been fascinating to watch. This is Nokia, formerly one of the sleepiest names in the business. When we saw a paper on this one, it was usually aggressive overwriting. Once in a while, someone would get the spirit in them to buy some calls in this one, but it was usually few and far between. These days, though, it's all upside for Nokia. The stock's been on a rampage, up pretty much 25% over the past month. Giving some of that back this week, giving up 34 cents today. Let's see. So they're off, about 34 cents, trading 16.38. They got as low as right around 15 and a half bucks today before they bounced it back up again. So Nokia been on the run. Have you been trading Nokia, listeners? 624,000 contracts. For the number 5 spot, number 4, just listen to the hot options report if you want to hear the saga that has been Micron over certainly the past month, but even over the past week. The amount of people who were piling into the par strike, aka the 1,000 strike, when the stock was below 700 was ridiculous, and yet they continued to do so. Stock rallied 100 plus handles, trading 800 and change. Still seeing folks piling into the pars expiring last Friday for ridiculous prices, $11. All that money went to die because we got close. They made the old college try. Didn't quite break 1,000 last week. Of course, if they had bought them for this week, they'd be looking a lot better. Did get well above 1,000 this week. Gave a good chunk of that back, and given some of that back again today, off 58 handles, or about 5.4%, trading 1,021. Of course, off the news of the AV Go sell-off. That said, it did hit 971. It did break 1,000 in the wrong direction briefly this morning before this Uncle Mike buying spree kicked off and everything started rallying. Micron, number 4, 637 on the tape. Number 3, you knew it had to be here somewhere. It's AV Go. Mostly going down today, off $61 or about 13%, trading right around 418. That said, they have rebounded off their lows of the day as well. They got down as low as 403, pretty much exactly. So they've bounced about 16 handles from that low, but still not a great day for Broadcom bulls. Number 3, 825 on the tape. Number 2, Tesla. Is it a good day for Tesla bulls? The answer is no. Selling off about $4.50, trading 419 and a quarter right now, putting up 1.42 million. So kind of a sleepy day volume wise for Tesla. And then the big dog, Nvidia, they're saying Broadcom. What Broadcom? They're laughing all the way to the bank today, up $4.35, trading $18.85. That said, they did get spooked earlier in the session as well. They sold off to 211. So they broke that 52, that all-time high that they set not that long ago of 212, and it seemed like they couldn't break it forever, then finally blew through it over the past month. And they've been pretty much selling off right back to that level again and actually broke through it this morning to 211 before they turned right around and rallied back up to where they are, nearly 219 now. Nvidia, 2.4 million contracts on the tape. So a pretty active day. But Mr. Flowmaster, since I have you on, hot off the presses from our friends over there at OCC, we finally have the numbers for May. It takes them a few extra days whenever there's a holiday involved, it seems like, out there. So let's check, listeners. Was May a banger month in terms of overall options flow? Or was it a sleeper? The answer was, you know what it was. It was a banger, listeners. 1.47 million contracts on the tape. I went and had a chance to check really quickly. That just slightly outpaces April by about 20 million. That was 1.45. This is 1.47. So looks like this is the hottest month on record in the history of options. If you're wondering, listeners, equity options, 803 million contracts, up about 25%. ETF options, 540 million contracts, up over 23%. Index options, 122.6 million contracts, up about a third. And overall options volume up a little over 25%. Even the futures getting a lift in May, up nearly 20%, about 19.5%. to 4.1 million. If you've been listening to this show for a while, futures have been kind of the lone dark spot on the volume story in the world of options and derivatives, but not this past month. Mr. Flowmaster, I'm sure you've seen these numbers out here. What are your thoughts on what appears to be the busiest month of all time, sir?
Well, it definitely is, and actually there were a couple fewer trading days in May. So 73.3 million contracts was the ADV, which is a new all-time record for the month. And as you said, it's kind of an interesting one. Single stocks kind of came roaring back. We saw 38.8 million contracts trade in the single stock. So we've talked about kind of some of the dynamics there. The Monday, Wednesday expirations on Tesla and Nvidia and Apple and a handful of other tickers. Those have seen pretty instantaneous uptake, and those continue to fire. You also had you had a lot of volatility. As I mentioned before, we're seeing big moves in the single stocks. Up and down, but some of the up moves have been pretty impressive. That draws in the retail trading community, and that really drives that single stock volume. But yeah, all-time record. But we're kind of getting tired of all-time records. I actually did update my annual forecast for the year. We're now looking, including the May data, 69.8. Let's see. Sorry, that's the current average daily volume. 18.1 billion expected to trade this year. So remember, we used to talk about, like, would we ever see another month under 1 billion contracts? Well, now it's kind of like 1.5 billion seems to be the number to kind of keep an eye on. So just everything firing. The fact that the market's been on a tear higher really since the end of March. That helps. That really does boost the kind of the self-directed and the retail trading. But we are also seeing a lot of retail, a lot of institutional activity, and then as we head into this the SpaceX IPO and these other $1 trillion IPOs, trillion plus, there's going to be a lot of capital getting moved around, and we will see it in the options market. So it's very exciting times.
Yeah, it used to be 1 billion in a month was a huge deal. Now we had our pro chat saying the other day, what about a 1 billion contract week? And we're not that far away from that, Mr. Flowmaster. So yeah, that's a kind of a wild prospect, but 1.5 billion contracts in a month. Absolutely crazy. Speaking of crazy, it's that time of the show, listeners. It is time to get wild. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, listeners, now that we got that Uncle Mike guy out of the way, we can go deep into some weird and wild paper out there. And it's always fun when we kick things off with a newcomer. We're going to do that today. This is Next Nav Inc., ticker symbol NN, trading $24.26, up about $2.70 today, or 12.5%. So a good day for Next Nav. Has it been a good year? The answer is yes. They're up 104%, or about $12.50. Obviously, today's move helping out with that quite a bit. If you go back, let's see, they were about 11, almost $12 about exactly a year ago. And if you go back to April 8th, they were about $14 and change. So they were up for the year, but obviously nowhere near as aggressive. And they took a nice shot up to $23.20 on April 20th. And then came right back down to about $16 and change on April 28th. So they flirted with this level once before, couldn't maintain it. And then over the past month have been pretty much clawing their way back up. They hit $23 again on May 20th and then gave up the ghost again. They sold off to about $19 and change on June 1st. And over the last 3 or 4 sessions, shooting their way back up again. So this is their third college try, and apparently making a new 52-week high today of $24.42. Mr. Flowmaster, sir, this seems like an intriguing one. What'd you spot out here, sir?
Yeah, so I've never looked at this name in my life. Some sort of geolocation technology. I'm not even sure what that means. We have it in the tech sector, so tech hardware. What I noticed was some pretty simple call buyers, but heavy overall volume as well. So 22,000 calls have traded today versus 1,400 puts. That's twice the average daily call volume. And the biggest block traded just at 12:24 in the afternoon, so not even about an hour ago. And that looks to be a buyer of 5,300 of the August 30 calls. So it traded on the trading floor, so it was have to be a little bit careful there. But based on what the volatility reaction was, I think that was a buyer. There is sufficient open interest in there. There's almost 70,000 contracts of open interest. But based on the pricing, these things traded at what price did they get for those? $3.90. The other open interest looks like it was accumulated a little lower, like two-ish to three-ish. So my feeling on this is it might be somebody buying to cover, taking some pains. The stock's been pretty strong. But there was also another kind of directionally bullish block. 1,000 of the August 30 calls traded for 3 a little bit earlier in the day. So looks to me like basically somebody just kind of trying to get long. Volatility is pretty high in this name, at 135% in the 30-day. It's not the most liquid name. The average daily volume in it is only 14,000 contracts. So, but it's an odd one. I'm not too sure. I did not jump into it, as we're kind of hanging out near all-time highs. And like I said, things did get a little squirrely Monday and Tuesday. I'm being a little bit careful about the longs, but this is an interesting one to me.
It is an interesting one. It's a fun one when neither the Flowmaster nor I have really come across it. That's always fun. They are indeed a geolocation service. So there you go, listeners. Maybe that's the one to put on your radar, at least keep an eye on, put on your watch list. We shall see. A name we've talked about before and are going to do so again, listeners. This is BlackBerry, ticker symbol BB, up $10. And trading $10.76. That'd be interesting if they were up $10. Trading $10.76, up about 60 cents today, or about 6%. Do the math; it's pretty easy, listeners. So, interesting day. We have been talking about this name having this sudden resurgence over the past few months. It was $4 a year ago, and as of the beginning of April, it was $3.24. So it had continued its long trajectory of just losing value all the way through until the start of April. Then it seems like April kicked off and this name just was shot out of a cannon. You don't need me to tell you why, listeners. They whispered the magical letters of AI. And once you do that, that's all it takes. People see a low stock price and the magical letters of AI, and they think, hey, maybe this is a value AI play. Let's go grab some. The next thing you know, BlackBerry is up 167% for the year and up about 100% or over $5 just over the past month. So a wild time out here in BlackBerry, not that dissimilar from what we're talking about with Nokia. Apparently, all the old dead phone brands are hot again, Mr. Flowmaster, because they're all whispering the magical letters of AI. What is catching your eye out here in BlackBerry today, sir?
Well, what's funny is there is also a stock with the symbol BBAI, which I have been in and out of, and that's Big Bear AI, which I think got down to like a couple bucks and it's kind of back up around 5-ish now. I'm looking at the chart, BlackBerry going back to 2008, you've got $100 stock there, $116 it looks like. So, but it's a stock. It actually, I believe it kind of was also played in the meme era when GameStop and those other stocks were kind of exploding to the upside. So it's a stock that customers are very aware of, kind of keep an eye on. It's certainly it's kind of a household name. However, if you ask most of the people does anybody have a BlackBerry device, they'd look at you like, what's that mean? So what we're seeing today, as you said, the stock's been on a tear. Today we've got 174,000 calls trading versus 76,000 puts. Now the average daily call volume is almost 100,000, so it's heavy, but it's not that heavy. That put volume is also a little bit heavier. And if we look at the kind of pricing dynamics, we see volatility kind of getting, basically holding very firm around 120% for the at-the-money implied vol, but also kind of steepening up. So this is actually the trade that caught my eye is actually looks a little bit bearish. What I see is the June 26th, so about 3 weeks to expiration, the 10.5 put spread. So just a little 50-point put spread, but somebody paid 24 cents for that. About 4,400 times, and that does look opening. And I was able to kind of double check side of market using the CBOE open close data because it's traded on our C2 exchange, and that is a buyer. So what I'm thinking here is, and then the other trade is that I see is a decent seller of the August 16 calls, 5,200 times for $1.04. So with stock around 1060 something when it traded, that's more than 50% of the money. But it looks to me like somebody actually is really kind of trying to fade this move. Maybe they've been long the stock and they're just kind of happy to take off some delta. But the trades in this one, usually on the odd block, we kind of focus on the speculative bullish stuff, but this one actually seems to kind of be a lean the other way, maybe after the fact that the stock's up 70% in just a couple weeks.
Maybe this guy, he sees all these zombie phone brands rising from the dead, sir, and he's gonna put a bullet in them. He says, no more. This is too far. But yeah, it is interesting. Nokia and BlackBerry. If you had asked me a few months ago if I had those brands on my radar, I would have laughed at you. And now here we are, listeners. The hottest thing out there, BlackBerry and Nokia. Let's go out, let's go for another newcomer. Why not? Let's just keep mixing it up, listeners. I like this name, 10X Genomics Inc. So whatever gene sequence you want, they'll do it 10 times for you. Ticker symbol TXG. Obviously, this is a biotech, listeners. Trading $33.69, up nearly 5%, or about $1.50 today. Looks like they got even higher. They got up to 35.64 intraday. So they had a nice little pop out of the gate. On the year, it's been a good year for them as well. Any stock that's up 260%, probably a good year, up about $24.35. So a nice run for them, including, let's see, they were $9.34 a year ago. On May 11th, they were pretty much 2x that. They'd already had a good run. They were $20. And then they've had another run up here to, like I said, $35 as of this morning, just over the past month or so. So been another good leg higher for 10X Genomics. Can they get 10X on their stock price in another year or so? I guess we shall find out. But we'll also find out, Mr. Flowmaster, what'd you spot out here in everyone's new favorite, TXG, sir?
Yeah, so this one, it's another, this one is a kind of it appears to be pretty bullish. Stock, as you said, is up almost 5% today, and up, almost $10 in 2 weeks. This is another one where you just look at it, you go, okay, well, maybe there's something going on. But volume today, 3,700 calls versus a total of 93 puts. And when I look at the individual prints, I see a couple interesting ones. A buyer of 1,000 of the July 40 strike calls, 285. That one's opening. That was around 11 a.m. when the stock was a little bit higher than it is now. But also buyers of the July 35 calls, and even some of the shorter dated June 18th, so the regular June expiration, 35 strike calls for 260. I don't know, I've said before that when I worked at a bank, I was always kind of terrified of trading the drug stocks, but I eventually learned that, that the customers, there's a pretty savvy group of customers out there trading biotech. Keeping very close track of the progression of the drug trials and which trials are kind of pivotal and everything else. It's not quite as easy as just checking the FDA calendar. So I do pay attention to unusual directional activity, especially in biotech. This one, that might be worth a small position in the stock, or maybe even something like an overwrite, because the the implied vol in there is well over 100%. So if you think about buying the stock and selling some of the $6 or $8 out of the money calls, you can probably kind of pull back a buck or two in the premium there. You just have to be comfortable with the trade profile, which is pretty much identical to being short a cash secured put. So an interesting one. I haven't traded. I don't think I've ever looked at this name either. So a couple newbies, and then the BlackBerry. And then one thing I wanted to mention was, were you watching the SPCE, the Virgin Galactic?
We did talk about it earlier this week, yes. But
Yeah,
go ahead. Give us your thoughts.
Well, I mean, so Virgin Galactic, which has nothing to do with SpaceX, but the ticker is SPCE. Stock was up, I believe, 30% on Friday, and then another 20% on Monday, and then it just got absolutely pounded on Tuesday. So it's just been all over the place. It's basically, I believe, it's probably kind of some ticker confusion, or maybe it's just getting sucked into kind of the community that likes to trade these super volatile stocks. But it's up another 12% today. It's kind of hanging around $4.5 or $5. But along the lines of GameStop, the trade I did in there on Monday when the stock was up for a second day was actually a put sale, because the stock was shooting higher and volatility was going up with it. And what we saw in GameStop and some of these other meme names is, even though the stock kind of comes back to earth, which in this case it really did, it came back down almost 50%. The volatility comes in so fast at the same time that the puts effectively can go down in value even though the stock's cratering, and that's exactly what happened in in Virgin Galactic. So it's obviously people need to be really careful of what they're trading. I don't know really where this flow is coming from, but given all of the news hype around SpaceX pricing, and it does look like the dates that we've mentioned before, I believe are going to stick. So that looks like a June 12th IPO, and we should see options on as soon as like the Monday following. So I'm excited for that.
That will be exciting. Since we got a couple extra seconds here, let's just dive into this one quickly, because it's kind of a very current one. We don't normally do a lot of unusual activity in these big mega caps when they're moving crazy like Broadcom is today. Obviously, nice wipeout after earnings, but we did spot one block of puts seem kind of interesting. By the way, today's sell-off, it looks like they are rebounding now. They got up to about 422 or so in AVGO after selling off to 403. At the depth of their sell-off, that was a nigh on historic sell-off. They had lost about 15%. It was over 300 billion, about 320 billion in market cap. That puts it only behind Nvidia and Microsoft in terms of the largest one-day wipeouts in history. Remember, Microsoft had that bad earnings a cycle or two ago, and they got wiped off the board. And we've seen that in Nvidia once before, too. So Broadcom slotting in there pretty much at number 3, at least for right now, in terms of historic wipeouts. That might explain why we saw some put paper, or a lot of it, going up today. This one kind of came across our radar. I didn't have much time to dig into it, so I don't think there was another leg to this, or if it was a spread. But we saw 7,000 of the July 330 puts going up. If that sounds like a pretty far out of the money strike, it was. The stock was right around 411 and a half at the time. So either it was breaking through it to the downside, or they were starting to recover and break it through it to the upside. But either way, not a good morning for Broadcom. Also kind of explains why this market was so wide. 305 at 370, but obviously when the sky is falling, you expect a little bit of wider market. So it is quite possible somebody hit the bid on these things. Getting back to what Henry was saying earlier, sometimes the vol gets a little out of whack and comes back to earth after these moves settle down. So looking definitely with the benefit of hindsight, you definitely like this better as a put sale. If you think that's a historic level to get back into, 330 minus your $3.50, the stock was just back there not that long ago. The stock was below it, actually. Got down to 293 on March 30th. So selling these puts would still get you in above that price, but obviously below where it's been on its meteoric rally here ever since. Mr. Flowmaster, did you spot these puts in AVGO, and any thoughts on them, sir?
Well, yeah, I didn't look at them until you mentioned it, but I'm guess is it might have been actually a buyer. It's not closing, so it's not somebody that was short them into earnings. But it traded on the box, so it's a little bit harder to tell for sure. One thing that stands out to me is I think kind of the market really had the move wrong. I mean, yesterday the straddle was pricing in only around 8% or so, and even though it's kind of coming back a little bit, we're only down 11.5% now. I think we were down. It was down more than 20% earlier, right? And most of the most active series yesterday is, in fact, looking at basically, it looks like 8 out of the top 10 yesterday were calls that expire June 5th. So a lot of kind of pre-earnings action in Broadcom, and really mispriced. I mean, you could have, if you'd had an inkling that it was going to be a blowout disappointment, you could have made some serious money there. So it's definitely an interesting one.
An interesting one indeed, and it's always interesting when we go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on till our next episode. And as I hazarded a guess at the start of the show that we would probably be green across the board by the end of the show, that is indeed the case. NASDAQ erasing its losses, now up a little over 1/10%. S&P up nearly 0.5%, and the Dow still feeling its oats, up about 1.6%. And they're coming for vol as a result. 1540 is where the cash is hanging out right now. Our chat saying, Mr. Flowmaster, they actually have been aware of this NN for a little bit. It popped up on some of the other scans that we utilize out there, including some of the quick scans recently. So there you go. NN30s have apparently been on the radar for the past 2 weeks. So there we go, Mr. Flowmaster. I guess we're late to the party. Our chat is ahead of us. But what are you keeping an eye on in the days ahead of us in the market, sir?
Well, I'll tell you one thing that's pretty interesting is, so the pattern day trading rule is starting. It's starting to drop. Each brokerage can kind of handle it as they like, but I'm starting to get some emails from some of the places that I have keep accounts that it's been eliminated. So that changes the for accounts with less than $25,000 in them, they used to basically cap you at a kind of a relatively low number of trades per week. It was slightly confusing, but for option traders, it was really, really tough, because it would make some situations that the customer might not close a trade, even though it was a good risk management idea to do so, because they didn't want to hit their limit. So that's going away. We expect to see additional volume out of kind of the small accounts, because they're not going to have to worry about hitting that limit. It's good, and that's a really old rule that didn't make a lot of sense, because it was fixed to $25,000 for, I believe, the last 15 years or so. So I'll be looking to see kind of if we can tell anything going on there. And then, yes, we still have a war in the Middle East to pay attention to, but this $1.7 trillion IPO from SpaceX is, I think, going to keep people wrapped with attention at the market. So that's what I'll be doing as well.
Ah, yes, the end of pattern day trading. We shan't miss you, listeners. We did mention on Options Bootcamp, but stay tuned to all that stuff, because when that's going away, they are increasing some of their intraday margin surveillance as a result. So you might see more margin calls in the near future. So just something to be aware of. Don't just go slinging willy-nilly. Make sure you got the capital to cover those trades out there, listeners. But that music means no more covering to do on the show. As I thought, the technology god struck down Uncle Mike. So make sure you check him out. stcharleswealth.com is the place to go. If you want him coming to your door, he'll make a house call, and he'll bring some delicious gyros with him. stcharleswealth.com to learn more. And Mr. Flowmaster, where should folks go if they want a house call from the Flowmaster, maybe get their own personal state of the industry presentation, sir?
Just head over to SIBO.com, and you can search for me. I don't know if I'll make a house call. It depends on the circumstances, but you can definitely download the latest Q1 update, and I'm actually kind of trying to get things updated through May as well, so I'll be putting out some additional content there. SIBO.com and SIBO.com/RMA for our risk and market analytics, which is where our data and platforms can be found, and you can request a trial and see what we have.
There you go. Check them out. SIBO.com/RMA is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. That's going to do it for us on the option block. Like I said earlier, not going to do it for us on the network, though. We'll be back in a little bit with TWIFO 500, which, by the way, the producer's just telling me you like 500 listeners. We are closing in on option block 1500. That will be hitting probably around September of this year, which is absolutely wild. So, Flowmaster, you got to hang around for the September 1500 spectacular. Should be a good one. So look forward to that. Mark that on your calendars, listeners. In the meantime, you got TWIFO 500 coming up next with Mr. Nick, who creates all the data we use on that show, as well as, of course, a bunch of other special guests. We got more popping in as I'm doing the show here, so it should be a fun time. And then see you back here after the closing bell for Thor. Then, of course, back again tomorrow with Dr. Vix and other special guests to talk a lot of vol. And then back for all you pro folks, theoptionsinsider.com/pro with a whole bunch of options oddities. Should be a banger. Maybe we'll get up to some fun in NN. Let's see. Check out the pro if you want to learn more. Then back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by SIBO. SIBO's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.sibo.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of CBOE Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively CBOE. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the CBOE products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.